This conference will now be recorded.
right? So we're going to understand how network is actually, blocks the communication or accept the communication to any service that you're trying to access. In fact, so you cannot, skip the network part to reach any service first. It listens on particular network in the background, and you need to allow or disallow. It depends on your requirement. You have to control the access of the people or some networks, what you wanted to allow, what you don't want to allow. We're going to see that. So this is a very important piece of thing we need to understand to work on any service. In fact, you are from any background, it doesn't matter. You must aware of the network implementation, how it integrates, how it will let us to access some services, first go through the network kind of thing, right? So we'll see that, these are all very interesting topics we all need to aware of. So first I'm going to create a network. Before I create a network, I'll better make you understand what are the networks we can define in the cloud, right? So you cannot define anything that you wanted. There are classes, there are private IPs, so you need to know that. So we have A class private IP addresses. What are those basically? 10.0.0.0.02. It can grow up to 10.255.255.255. This is the A class private IP address range where you can use it. In the B class. B class private IP address is, let's start with 172 dot, sorry, 172.16.0.02. It can grow up to 172 dot, okay, and 31.255.255. This is a B class private IP address range. And the C class, under C class you'll find 192.168.0.0. It can grow up to 192.168.255.255. These are the only IPs you should actually introduce when you're working with the internal networking. If you go out of these networks, you cannot, your network won't work, as simple as it is, because these are the only IPs which are given for internal communication around the world. If you go and check in your internal network in your companies, they fall under this ranges, one of this range. Even you go to your ISP also in your machines IP config, you will see that IP range is absolutely come from the private IP only. Public IP you cannot find from the command prompt, you have to find from the browser, which is given by your ISP, internet service provider basically. So now if I wanted to define a network out of these class of IP addresses, let's do that. So I'm going to pick up one of the A class IP address. Just a minute. So we'll call it as a virtual networks here. Okay, virtual network. So virtual network I'm going to define as 10.5.example 0.0/16. So here all our IPs are 32-bit IPs. All whatever we are using nowadays. IPv6 also came into the market, especially they are using in mobile networks, but computing networks you are not using yet, but it will slowly implement because we are going to exhaust the IPv4 IP addresses very near soon. So here what we are saying with this /16 is, here every dot, it represents an one octet. Basically octet means 8 bits in fact. So we are blocking 16 bits. So what we are saying with this is these two are constant. Only these two octets are open to change. They only can change, but this cannot be changed because you blocked 16 bits already with a virtual network address. Maybe let's call it as network address, VNet address. Basically, in short form, we'll call virtual network as VNet. So now I want to divide that network into subnets. So this is falling in this range. Yes, it is falling. 10.0 to 10.255. It is in that range only. It should not exceed that range. If you go to 11.5, it won't work. Though you define 11 point network, that is a public network, which is someone bought already in the market. They paid for it. You cannot use the networks which are used by other people, and you cannot use the private public networks, as simple as it is. Private networks only falls under these ranges. So now this is a network we defined. I wanted to divide that network into subnet 1. Subnet 1, at 10.5.0 dot, okay, 1 dot first 0 dot 0 slash 24. So here what we are trying to do, the network address and the subnet address is same except the slash 24. Slash 24 is saying that these three octets are blocked now, not two. Only open is this last one. So the network address itself will become the subnet address, but the number of blocked bits will change. Okay. So here I'm blocking 24 means three octets are we are blocking. The last one will release the IP to the host 10.5.0.4. So you cannot use a 1, 2, 3 IPs. They are actually used for the internal purpose. For every network, there is only 251 IPs will get released. So here 10.5.0.4, next IP will be 10.5.0.5. It can grow up to 10.5.0.255. This is the last IP, 254. 5 is a broadcast IP address, 254. Now if I go to, I'll take one more example, don't need to worry. Subnet 2, here, what is the next subnet? 10.5.1.0 slash 24. So what is changed in this basically to the previous one? 0, 1. Here this is a one subnet, this is another subnet. The last one is open again for the change. So that will release the IP 10.5.1.4, 10.5.1.5. This can grow up to 10.5.1.254 like this. So if I go to the subnet 3 from that network, 10.5.2.0 slash 24. I'll explain again, no need to worry. 10.5.2.4 comma 10.5.2.5, and this can grow up to 10.5.2.254 like this. Again, last one. Let's build one more and then start the subnet 4. What will the subnet for? Can anybody tell based on above? 10.5.
3.0.
3.0. That's good. That's it. It is growing actually. See, if you see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to, it can go up to 254 actually, in fact, basically. So that way, the network can be segmented into subnets. Subnets can be segmented into IPs basically, right?
So why can't it be 10.5.3.1? Why you are starting with 4?
Just a minute. One is something internal purpose. So we will use it. That IPs you cannot use it. They are actually default gateway IP and broadcast IP addresses and uh, internal. It will use those IPs for the internal purpose. We cannot claim those IPs. That is a default reserved IPs for every network. So if you go to here, there is a default gateway point one. If you see, this is the ISP provider actually. So subnet mask is this, default gateway is this. So they'll use some IPs as a reserved IPs. We cannot claim them. That's how it works basically. For each subnet, it can release G4 to 54, 251 IPs in total basically. One subnet can release up to 251 IPs in fact. We will see that. We can track it also. How many IPs are getting released from each subnet. So last subnet 255 in fact, subnet 255. What will be the 255 subnet? It started with a 0, right? So it will be 254. So 10.5.254.0 slash 24, and then the first IP in that 10.5.254.4 first IP, 10.5.254.5 next IP. Okay, so the last IP from that network is 10.5.254.254 like this. So if you observe carefully, everywhere 10.5 is followed. 10.5 is fixed. You cannot change this. If you change this, the subnet is not valid under that network. Everywhere you followed 10.5 because you must obey the network reservation when you are building the subnets under that network. If you don't obey that, it will fall under different network, right? It will go to different network. So it started with the first subnet 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to 254. So total 255 subnets you can form from that network. Okay. Let me take one more example. So pay attention here. Right here, VNet address. VNet is here is virtual network short form. I'll take B class IP address 170.17.0.0/16. You see this? It is falling under 172.16, 170.31. In between, you can claim between range 116, 170.16, 170.17, 170.18, 170.19 like that. 170.31 up to this range you can take as a private IP address range. Next, what is the first subnet in this network? Subnet 1, 172.17.0.0/24. The last reservation bit is changing. 172.17.0.4, the first IP. 172.17.0.5 is the next IP. It can go up to 172.17. Any question? Let me know if you have a question. 170.17.1.0/24, 172.17.1.4, 172.17.1.5, 172.17.1.254, like that. Subnet 3, 172.17.2.0/24, right? 172.17.2.4, right? The next IP 172.17.2.5. It can grow up to 172.17.2.254. So like these subnets will be formed. So the subnet, last subnet, it can go up to subnet 255. In fact, it is 172.17.250, sorry, 254.0/24. 172.17.254.4, the first IP of it. 172. We will see in practical all of this, no need to worry. I'm going to show that how this will be formed. 254.4, 254.5, right? It can grow up to 172.17.254.254, right? This is how you define a network. Okay, come on, it went up. Yeah, this is how you define a network, and this is how you segment the subnets from the network, and this is how the hosts will be released. So we will go and define one of the private network here. Okay, the private network. Okay, I don't have resource group. I can create on the fly. I'll do this. It's fine. Now here I'm going to build name of the here is SQL VNet. Maybe any name, doesn't matter for that matter. And the region where I wanted to create the resources, it's a region specific. One network is limited to one region. One region network cannot be claimed in another region. So that's something I'll talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow is Monday. So we will create the network in India in one different range, and I'll create the network in US in a different range. We will make them to talk seamlessly. By default, network won't communicate. Okay. But anyway, let's cover the ground today and basics today. If you understand this class, you understand almost all the networking. Pay attention, very close attention. So there is a default type, private IP it is given, but I don't want this. I want to define my own. So maybe I wanted to go with the 10.25.0.0/16. It is one of the private IP, right? It is falling under private. You can see that this is under private 10.20, 10.0 to 10.255 in between. It has to be. It is correct. So subnet, one of the subnet you have to define. I'm going to define subnet 1. The first subnet, I'm going to take second subnet for just for the better visibility. 10 dot, what is that network? 10.25.1.0. This second subnet, in fact, not first. This is a valid subnet. If I change this to something else, it will throw the error. The subnet address range is not contained in this virtual network. You are not following the network what you defined. So it is asking you to be in that network. Okay. And this can be up to 0 to 254, in fact. I'll
Sir,
create.
sir, I have a question actually.
Go
So,
ahead.
so when we create an event, how to find actually? So, I mean, IP number which need to follow when we build an environment. Like we will get the IP from the infrastructure team, or so
Network team.
how to build it?
Infrastructure will give, network is team will define, infrastructure will give us IP. IPs
Okay.
are automated in the cloud actually. They claim the free IPs automatically. You don't take the IP which is taken by other service automatically. There are few services which you won't detect, but most of the services will know that you cannot claim the same IP for multiple services. We will talk about assignment of IPs. We will see it. Okay. When you create the machines, you will get to know. There is an internal DHCP which will take care of the IP assignment in the cloud. Subnet to, you have to define the IP assignment which can be done internally by the system itself. You need to understand how things work here. So I'm defining one more subnet, 10.25.2.0. Right. Now review and create the network. Now we're going to cover very basics. If you just focus it, you can ask all your doubts anyway, because if you understand this, you can understand entire discussions going forward. So we'll spend good time on your question, all of your questions anyway.
So how many subnets we need depends on the number of hosts in the environment.
Yes, actually, let me explain. Good question. So, how you wanted, how many subnets you have a network, what we defined. And we defined only two subnets here, one for the prod, one for the pre-prod kind of. You may need one more project, one more subnet, one more, two more subnets under the same network. Maybe you want a different network itself for that project. So how network can be defined by the architecture that from the networking team, we don't know. But whatever is defined, we need to utilize them. So each project can have its own network and subnets, associated subnets, or else one network, different subnets. That is also possible. Here, this is this network for one prod, one for pre-prod, one project. Maybe they'll create two more subnets, one for prod, one for pre-prod in the same network. Or else they'll define altogether different network. Inside that, they can define one prod, one pre-prod. And we will peer these networks to communicate to the network. That concept will come tomorrow. Anything is possible. Even you can run the all infrastructure under one network under different subnets and block the communication the way you wanted. That is possible as long as you're in a one region. If you are moving out of region, one more region, other region, you cannot use the same network. You definitely have to define one more network, and then you follow their other network rules and all. We will see that. I mean, you get to know by tomorrow, and by next class, you'll understand how networks will operate, how things can be controlled. It can be one network, all subnets, or different network, different subnets. All can be possible to manage the network. So now we created a virtual network called VNet. VNet. VNet address, we will call it as 10.25.0.0/16. This is what we created, right? So SQL VNet, what we've named it as SQL for this. And this subnet 1. Let me deploy the VMs and come back here first.
Ravi,
I
one
mean,
quick question.
yeah, go ahead, please.
So if you go back to your drawing,
Mm,
you said 10.25.00 right, /16. So
mm,
right now you have used that. So can
mm,
I, for example, log into my account like Azure account, and
mm.
can I also choose the same number now? Will it not allow me to choose that number?
No, you can use it. Is a for per subscription. It's isolated networks. See, as long as you are not under same subscription, you can use it.
Then the IPs will conflict, right?
No. It is isolated. It is subscription. Tagging goes to the subscription. You have two subscriptions. You can use the same network again. It is subscription level. One
Okay.
subscription, there is no relation with other subscription. It's your internal network. See, your question I understand. Like what he's saying, guys. Someone else will use the same IP. That is a conflict in the cloud entirely. Here you have a subscription, big boundary. This boundary is subscription. Under subscription, you are building a network. Under network, you are building your resources, groups or resource, whatever it is. So whatever you have here, it is fully isolated from the other subscriptions. There is
So
no
this,
overlap.
so these 251 IPs, what you said, under each subnet that we can create. So
Hmm.
those 251 are not unique only for the subscription, not for
Subscription. That's correct. Hmm.
not in the entire cloud or anything. Okay.
No. It is a subscription. Subscription means isolated body. Within that, you can use any IPs. Other people, one subscription, they can use any IPs. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
So it's container kind of thing. If that is the case, then the cloud have been run out of private IPs long ago. So
Exactly.
it
Okay.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's a valid
Yeah.
question. So
Thanks.
one network, whatever you define is none, no one can see your networks, in fact. Okay, it's not visible to anyone. It's only to you. If
No,
any everybody,
that means
Sir,
when you type in IP config
hmm,
on your local like laptop, whatever
hmm.
the IP you are seeing, so is that possible that there will be many such
Yes.
IPs with the exact
See,
same number,
I'm in the Hathway provider. Another provider also can have the same IP. Yes.
same IP? Okay, okay.
It is internal within that network. For them, it is not for someone else.
But in the URL we have the IPs, right? Sometimes
That is public.
uh,
That is public. If you are reaching on the URL, maybe if you have a VPN, you are reaching the private network, there is no issue. I have no conflict. But without the public domain, I'm just accessing google.com. It's a public domain. So that IPv should be unique. You get to know by this tomorrow. No need to worry. I'll talk
okay,
about
okay, yeah, oh,
internal, external load balancer. There you get the idea. Tomorrow, in the next after two classes, you get this idea. Services. How do we listen on the services and the IPs that you get to know? Okay.
yeah, right, right. Thanks.
Yeah, your questions are absolutely valid actually. But anyway, that will be answered. SQL VM01 and region is West India because I created the network in West India. If you have network and the object in the same region, then only can integrate the network. So I'm going with the Windows Server to the 19 data center.
sir, so actually in the region, we have many regions, right, in Azure.
Hmm.
So suppose if you are selecting for central US, so IP subnet extension will be changed or we can use the same.
If you are changing
Uh,
the region, example,
okay.
you cannot use the same network. You have to define different network, different subnets, and which should not use the same network because you are under the same subscription. See, region, let me explain again. Come on. So again, good question. All are valid questions. You have a subscription. Within the subscription, you can spin off your data center in multiple regions. It is possible, right?
Yes.
So here one region, here one region, here one region. Assuming three regions you are creating under one subscription. You have to create one VNet here, here, and here because one network cannot spam across different regions. You create one network here, you use this network for all these services. Not only one network, you can create multiple. You have 1,000 private IPs. In fact, here, if you look at not 1,000, but overall, if you look at how many networks, here 255 networks. Here 16 to 31, 16, 255, 16. 270 networks, 277 network, 271 networks you have. 271 networks you can define into the private. So one region, one network, another region, one other network, or else multiple region in a single network. It is possible. It is possible. Okay. So networks are region specific. One, if you create a network in one region, only that region services can use that network, not the other region. Other region need to have another network, which you should not use the same network here. Here you should not have an overlap. You need to make sure that within the subscription, the IP definition should not overlap.
That subnet means that VLAN, right, sir? Is an internal purpose. Like
Kind of, yes. VLAN. That's correct.
okay. Suppose if you are building a new VM, so the infrastructure will build a same server on the same VLAN, right?
Right. You have to
For
choose that
one
VLAN.
specific. Okay.
Right. So now inbound ports, I said like I will discuss in the networking. So I'm keeping none. I'm intentionally keeping none. Generally, we went with all the time. This is the one since the beginning, right? So I'll keep it none. Now I'll explain what exactly it is. This is the time where we need to invest time there. Okay. So now disk, we discussed all that. How do we add a disk? How do we attach a disk and all that? And the networking, this is the area we need to focus now, because I said when the network comes, we'll talk about it. So if you have multiple networks, choose a respective network. See, there will be runbooks for each project in our environment. There are different defined network, defined subnets. Okay, for prod this, pre-prod this, there are instructions. Runbook means instructions, step-by-step process. So you need to follow that. Initially, we used to refer the runbook and build a server. Now we know each project and what network, what subnet it go into, because we are working for years. We don't refer any runbook because we know in mind now what project, what network it has to be deployed. Absolutely, we know, because that's how you have to select the right network for your project, and what subnet you wanted to deploy that VM. You need to know that. And there is something called NSG. Don't keep it none. It is very important. This is what is firewall, cloud firewall. You wanted to allow someone, you wanted to don't want to allow someone. That is what is validates the inbound traffic, outgoing traffic. Both will be validated. Are they allowed to go or allowed to come inside? So both the ends, it will protect the server. In fact, inbound, outbound, both the traffics will be absolutely protected with the help of the NSG. You should not disable. And public inbound ports, I'm not enabling it for on purpose. Purposely, I'm not doing it. I'll go with none. There is something called accelerated networking. Accelerated networking is only available for the large VMs, not for the small VMs. It comes to extra cost, okay, double cost in fact in terms of networking. It gives the GBPS links, 10 GBPS link, 20 GBPS link, very huge. I mean, in terms of data, this comes with the GBPS link. So the selected VM size does not support this. The VM is small. So small VM means expected data, in and out will be less. If you're going the bigger machine, you're expecting to deal with a huge data. So deal with the huge data, you need a good bandwidth. So for the larger VMs only, this option will be enabled, not for all. Okay. So to to serve the data better for the large servers, the large bandwidth is required. So you have to choose this option when it is enabled. It is small VM, so it is not available. Load balancing is something we will pick up after one more class, not now. So network, subnet, public IP, let it be. Generally, we never have a public IP for the database servers in the real world. It should be none. But for now, I need a public IP to connect from my laptop. Without the public IP, I cannot connect. I'll build a VPN software. I can connect to the private network. I'll ask one of you to verify also. That class will come as the last networking class. We will see that. For now, your network, subnet, and leave this public IP as it is, and NSA should be enabled, and inbound port is none. And here, accelerated networking is not available because it's small. Load balancing, we will see it. So now the rest we have discussed. I mean, there are a few things again that again we'll be discussing in the storage. Now I'm going to create 2 more VMs. In fact, it is going to subnet 1, this VM. Submission, deployment, here I'll show that. This is also another important thing you need to know. So now I'm going to create one more VM. VM02, Windows Server, 2 CPs, 4 GB RAM, which is fine. And right here, I'm going with the allow the ports. So here on the first VM, I'll explain why it is so kind of, why should be allow, why should be none kind of. I'll explain in the first VM. So let's go with allow here. Why to have the same discussion again? So anyway, this you never do in the real time. The real time implementation come in the next class. This is understanding how things work. You need to understand first. I cannot go to straight away and implement the real time implementation. Next class is purely real time. I don't talk about this is what you're learning practice kind of. Next class is absolutely what we have in our environment. It's a live corporate network, how they implement. That comes in the next class. Because if I get into that side directly, you might confuse. I don't want to confuse. First, let's cover the ground and then get into the live part. So network subnet one, again, everything is same. Like NSG must be enabled, port is enabled, okay, which is fine. So now I'm deploying this VM. When I'm creating the VM, just to focus here, I wanted to show this. This is a very frequently asked question. When I click create, it'll go into deployment. When you go to the deployment, first initialization, submission, and deployment. You have seen that, everyone? ISD, installation, submission, deployment. Any service you know deploy in the cloud, it goes through 3 stages. In fact, installation, submission, deployment. You wanted to keep ISD as a shortcut, or keep it whatever the way you wanted in your mind, but you have to remember that sequence. This can be exam question. This can be mostly frequently asked question in the interview also. It's for any profile. They do ask what are the a deployment. If you deploy a service, what are the stages it goes through? That is the question they would ask you. You have to say installation, submission, deployment. So keep in mind. Next, I'll create one more VM into the subnet 2. Then we will play with all the practicals to understand how network works. SQL VM03, and then here default user. Now I'm here the password. Right, let the port will be enabled, and disk should be, I don't want SSD, and here I will place this into subnet 2, 1 VM into subnet 2, 2 VMs into subnet 1 as of now. Okay, so now I'm going to create this VM as well. So now here we are deploying 3 VMs, in fact, right? Third VM. So if we talk about in diagrammatic format, let's talk about, so come on, where it is. So here we are created SQL VM01 and SQL VM02. This is what we have done so far. So everything I'll relate with the diagram so that you understand well. So here the IP will be by default 10.25.1.4. Sorry, yeah, it's 1.4, 1.0, right? Here 10.25.1.5. And here, what will be the IP? Can anyone tell?
10.25.2.4.
Excellent, very good, absolutely good. 2.4. So now this is how we deployed the machines. Now let us see what's the VM status is. Yeah, 2 are running. Let me connect to them. So follow carefully here onwards. This is where we start the actual practicals and all that. I cannot connect to this VM. It will not let me to connect from the external world. It is completely disabled. The RDP is disabled. I kept to no. I cannot make a communication with this VM at all, because my RDP, see, IP is one thing, reaching the service is another thing. Reaching every service will have a port. Okay, the port must be again allowed. Server is one thing, and on top of the server, services you run. Each service will have an endpoint. We'll call it an endpoint basically, where you can hit it kind of. So the RDP endpoint is 3389. I disabled it. It will not let you to get into the machine because port is disabled. So I have to enable the port on the VM to talk to. So let me enable it. So second time also I'm doing it just to show that you cannot connect. If at all you all wanted to try, just try out all. I'll just ask you to just hit this IP and check it out. All will get the RDP service is off and machine is not available, something kind of 3 messages. Check it out. I gave the chart. I gave the IP in the chart. I'll ask you to verify also on few things. That's why you just hit that IP. I kept in the chart. Pick up the IP and place in the like MSTSC and then hit it. All of you. So it won't give you the login prompt. Check it out. Are you guys checking? Just keep it in the chart if you want. Yes means loading, no means no loading. So keep it in the chart as a response. No, right? For everyone should not know for sure. That's how it is. So now I'm going to open the port for everyone not connecting. Thanks, Sanjeev, for verifying and updating. So here it won't connect anyone in the entire world. So I'm going to go inside the VMC. What I'm trying to do, let me explain diagrammatically again. I'm here in my laptop somewhere out of the cloud. This is a cloud, assume again. This is the entire cloud. I'm trying to hit a machine. I'm trying to hit a machine here. There is energy protecting it. There is energy protecting the VM. I wanted to enter it. When I wanted to enter, there should be port allowed. So my traffic is going up to this point. Up to this point. This is my outbound call. From my laptop is an outbound call. I'm trying to enter inside the VM, inbound call. So this is where my connection is blocked. So I'm going to define a rule on the networking and the inbound rule port. Click on the add inbound. Whom you wanted to allow. I'm keeping everyone in the world who have the internet should access this. It never happens in the real time. You will open the communication like this. But for now, we'll come to the bad to good. You will see very bad face to good face so that you understand better. So I'm keeping anyone whoever have the internet connectivity can reach my machine with the public IP because there is a public IP on the VM. Private IP you cannot reach anyway. That comes in the VPN configurations. We're going to see that. When you have the public endpoint, VM has a public endpoint means public IP, in fact. So it can communicate, it can reachable from anyone. And the port, the service what I'm trying to open is RDP. Every service is listed here in this one. Or else you can go to custom and then, come on, where is the custom? You can give the port number, either of it will work. Either go to the custom, mention 3389, or else go to here and select the respective service which you wanted to open. Either of the cases will work. When you select this one, 3389 port is by default, it is opening. Add it. So I'm adding the port to the anyone in the world. They can reach this VM using this public IP and then they can connect using that port. Anyone in the world for that matter, whoever, wherever they are, it doesn't matter. They need to have internet connectivity. That's it. The routing can happen. Now, the port is added. It takes hardly 30 seconds to reflect in the background. When you add it, you have to wait for 30 seconds. Okay. So wait, I'll just wait and hit it. 30 seconds to get that rule updated in the background. So now let me see if it works for you. It works for everyone. Okay, now it is working. Check it out, everyone. You're getting this login prompt. You all should get it. Check out. Except who are on the office laptops, you may not make it because your VPN will block it. But personal laptops, wherever you are, it will connect. Just connecting. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, it should work for everyone. That's what a rule is actually allowing. Anyway, I'll block all of you also by the end of the class. No need to worry. Except me.
Ravi, in inbound, when you said destination any, what does that mean? Source any means anyone can connect, but what is that destination any means then?
That comes in the next class. Actually, destination here is you are coming from the source, and the destination side, what IPs you wanted to connect from that source. You can
Oh,
define only one IP and that subnet.
okay.
And the subnet also, I wanted to allow on all the machines. That we will see in the next class.
Okay.
So now that's a good question. So now I'll go to the next VM and then connect to that. This will connect because I opened that port when I'm creating itself. Okay. So
So Ravi, this IP, whatever 104.211 is
mhm.
assigned to the VM, which is unique across the world, right? Not
Yes,
to
across the
our.
world. That's
Okay.
correct. That's unique across the world. That's why you're
Okay.
able to connect. Else you will be rerouted to somewhere else.
Okay.
These IPs are unique.
Private IPs have range. Does public IPs also will have a range?
Okay, public IPs actually you cannot define. It will be released by the Microsoft, portal in the background. There are defined IPs. We can find it actually. You can find it. Azure all IPs list region wise. You can go and download it if at all you wanted to verify something. They're allowing you to download and verify your IP ranges. These are all IPs. The IP ranges in the service tag, so in the public cloud. So you download, this is Azure Cloud IP range. It got downloaded. You can verify it, whatever the IP it is releasing. So these are all IPs. So now if I go to where did I build this VM? West India, right? And West India, if I wanted to verify the IPs are West India only, 104.211.155 is the range, right? Or else I'll just type West India in India maybe. What down? So India, do you have 10? What is that network range? 104.211. 104, right? This is where it is releasing from. 102.11, and this is also not 102.11. 155 is a subnet, so it's not 155. You don't find it here. You'll go to next. Central India. It is also India Central, India Central, India Central, India West. Yeah, West India. You would definitely find that IP somewhere. There is a definition. It is not just releasing blindly. It is releasing the IPs which are defined for that region. India, South India, West India. It is IPv6 IPs, it seems. Just not. It will be there for sure. Central India. That's India Central. India West. Here also there is no such range. Okay. South India. West India. Right. 104.211.155 range. Here also it is not there. It will be there. I'm just verifying it. Without that, it won't release the IP. So Central India. Central India. Central India West, right? 10, no. Here also there is no such range. This is huge list actually.
I think we
104.
have it right. 104.211. That's the range you were showing.
Okay, but there that will be given to many regions actually. So 104, yeah, 104.211 dot, what was it, 55, right? 155, right? You see West India, it is coming from this one. If this is a range, it is picked up from, this is the one, it is released the IP basically. So if you look at this one 163, and if you look at that notepad also, how the IP is started with 114 something. 114 afterwards 32 IPs will released. So look at this, this is falling under that IP something. So that is how. So if I go to the next VM will have another IP range that won't be same. 111 to 258. If I go to other one, let's see, right one 256. So 258, 256. So all are from here it seems. 155. What is this? 156. Where is the 156? Let's see. It might be above. Right, here it is. 156. It is should be West India. See, West India. So it is looking for the range which are defined in the background, and you are getting it. These are all public IPs range. It can claim, a VM can claim, or any service can claim in that region for that matter. Okay.
Yeah.
This IPs actually are released by the Azure itself. You cannot control the public IPs. You cannot go and ask that I need the public IP in this range. Absolutely not possible. It's a fully dynamic allocated. They are giving a public IP, reserve it with a static IP. That's it. You cannot do anything else. If the public IP is lost, you deallocate a VM, it is dynamic IP, you lose the public IP, you cannot get it back the same IP. It is impossible. It will get a different IP. You have to map your connection to new IP if it all mapping with the IP. So that's how it is.
Thank you.
Right. Let's move on. Where are we? So we created and connected all the machines. Let's verify this. CMD IP config 10.55.1.4. Okay, 10.55.1.5 it should be. It is a VM02, right? It does the IP assignment will be done by the internal DHCP. You don't have to worry about. The cloud will take care of the IP assignment. IP config. See here 1.5, and that other one should be 2.4. It is in the subnet 2. Here, this one, what we deployed. So 10.25.2.4. So these are all different IPs. By default, all within the subnet, within one network, all subnets will communicate, all services will talk. There is no restriction between this subnet to this subnet. In all directions, one network, all subnet will communicate on all services. There is no blocking, as if like they are single subnet kind of. Under one network, by default, there is no blocking between the subnets. They'll talk on any service that is there on the machines. So there is no blocking. Seamlessly they'll communicate. This is for prod, this is for pre-prod. How to differentiate, right? That's something we will see in the tomorrow class. But for now, how do I block a host if I don't want access? How do I get the access if I wanted to allow the access? So we'll see in that direction. Okay. Let's go to here on the VM01. If I wanted to communicate to VM03, in fact, 10.25.1. Sorry, 2.4, right? That is a 2.4. It will load. It is communicating. There is no blocker for this because they belong to same network. Subnets belong to same network. The IPs also fall under the same network subnets. So you can communicate absolutely. So if I go in the reverse direction to this machine, and if I'm trying to connect 10.25.1.4, it will connect because they actually belong to same subnet. If I do this one again, it'll connect. Now I wanted to actually block the communication. So VM03 should not enter into VM01. That's my requirement. I don't want allow VM01 to VM01. So this is the outbound call for this. This outbound call, this is the inbound call for this, right? You're leaving VM03 and making a connection to VM01. So this is whatever is leaving, the source is outbound, the target is inbound. You're entering into the target. So I'll come back to VM01. I'll block the communication. So go to the networking here on the VM and then define a role. Just I'll collapse this and I'll collapse this. Fine. So if you look at here, everything is allowed with the first rule. I'm creating a rule to block the IP. So I'm going with the particular IP here. IP 192 dot, or else let's do in a reverse order to talk about little broader. Let me close this. I don't want this.
So by default, this communication will happen. The servers are built in the same region, right, sir?
Right. Same network, not region. Network.
Same network. Okay.
Same network. So now what is my requirement is, guys, this one should talk to this one. Both are talking to this machine. It is possible by default because there is no blocking imposed at all as of now. So first VM, both the VMs will communicate 10 dot 25.2.4 other machine. It will load. So it is loading from the VM01, VM02 both, in fact. Okay. So now what I have to do, I wanted to block SQL VM01 first to not to enter. This IP I wanted to block. So how do I block? I'll go to the VM03 because it is a target VM where I'm entering it. Go to the VM03, click on the networking. Under the networking, I wanted to add a blocker rule in the inbound. Add inbound. I'm going to add the IP of that machine 10.25.1.4. okay, and the RDP port I wanted to deny on the RDP port 10.25.1.4. okay, and there is a if you look at this, a priority, there is a 310 and the rule name can be anything, doesn't matter, it doesn't matter at all. The name priority 310, I'm creating a rule. So the rules run in the order of priority lower to higher all the time. Whatever the rules you are defining here, the rule will start from the lowest priority to highest priority, the rule run format. So now I blocked VM01 to not to enter into VM03. This is a block. You can see that it is denied. It is denied. But here, if I'm trying to make a connection from the VM01 to VM03, still it will communicate. Why? Though we blocked, it is making a communication
Because of the priority.
because of the priority. Very good. The priority 300 is allowing everyone to communicate. Though you are blocking here, it is not reaching. The first priority is executed and it is allowed, it went through. So it did not reach here. So if I wanted to block this one, I have to make this priority to 320. Then only that rule will work. So creating the rule is one thing and placing the rule in the correct order is another thing. It must be taken care. So now the rules are switched. 310 came above. So the first rule what it execute every connection is this. So now if I go to this VM, it was working fine before, now it won't work. If that rule is took into effect, it takes some time. Don't just justify immediately, it takes some seconds. Okay, it started. So VM01 is not talking to VM03 in fact, because we blocked that IP not to enter inside the VM on the port 3389. It will talk on another port. It is possible. We only blocked on the RDP port. If you don't want any service to listen, you can block all the ports. That also I'm going to talk about. For that, what I'll do, I better install web service here.
There is a communication between VMs should always be on private network, right? We cannot use public IP and do MSDSC from here.
Yeah, I'm blocking only private. I'm not talking about the public here. So we are talking about private only. So public anyway from the external. It is internal communication what we are trying to discuss. What happened to this? We are blocking only the private IP. If you look at this one, I block the private IP. This is not a public IP basically 10.25. So internal only we are checking it. For now, okay. So now this won't communicate. This won't communicate. Now, whereas if I go back to VM02, it will communicate. Why? I did not block this VM. I wanted to block entire subnet. I wanted to block entire subnet not to enter into this VM. Not only this one VM or two VM. I wanted to block entire subnet. In fact, this entire subnet should not enter into this VM particularly. This VM, all subnet should be broken. So I'll define one more rule. The rule I'm going to add is this. I gave the in the last rule the one specific IP. Now I'm going to define 10.25.1.0/24, okay, and denied on the destination side on the port 389, but the priority 330. Let me make it with the same value, but I'll ask you what happens. I'm creating one more rule to deny entire subnet, not one particular host. 251 hosts will be denied with that rule, basically, not one. So I'm denying all the subnets, the entire subnet to not to enter into this particular VM with this rule, because the rule is actually blocking the entire subnet. But will it be blocked? That's another question. See, the rules runs priority order from lower to higher. The first one is blocked. This is blocked anyway with the first rule. It is still blocked. But the second one is blocked.
Not yet because the priority is high.
No.
That's very good. You guys are good actually to understand this. So 320 is allowing, so this won't reach here. So this one still communicate. Though the rule is there, which is blocking, it is not reaching actually. In fact, because there is a rule with a lower priority which is allowing it. So I have to make this to something. I'll give a different value of 350 something, 360 or 350, whatever it is, higher than the 320, 330. So now this will bring up, understand closely. These are all very basics. Tomorrow tomorrow in the next class, Monday, we will see live practicals, live corporate network. So now, will it be blocked now? VM02 to VM03? Yes, it should, because it is falling in that network 1.5, right? So we block the entire subnet, in fact, the entire subnet traffic. If I go to here, if that rule is took into effect, okay, it is done. So now both the VMs are not communicating. VM01 is not communicating. VM02 is
Ravi,
also not communicating.
Ravi, I have a small doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah, how we get to know how many members are using our network? I mean, accessing our network.
it's not about how many, it's about the IP. IP to where to it has to go. How many it is, that is a service. How many are using that service? That is a different story. Service, you are giving to how many people. You're selling what? Based on that, the people will hit the particular IP. But that particular IP can go where is a discussion,
You
not
just said
number of
that
them.
something like you are going to block every one of us after our class,
That's something
saying
we'll
that,
see.
right?
That we will see, and the IP that is also comes under IP only.
Okay.
That also comes under IP. So now, do I need to keep the first rule? Is it still needed when this rule is there?
No.
No, I don't need this. This rule is already blocking it. So now I want to delete this. Still, even if I delete the first rule, still both the VMs are blocked, because you blocked entire subnet. In fact, 251 machines you blocked with that rule, not one. See here, only one rule which is blocking the entire subnet. Still, VM01 won't talk, VM02 also won't talk. Why? Because they fall under same subnet. You block the entire subnet, they won't communicate. As simple as it is. You blocked it.
And this RDP and ping are both are same, right? Even the ping also not work, right?
Ping will work. Ping goes through different port. Ping works, but RDP won't work. You would have seen that kind of things in the environment. That means they did not allow on the RDP, but ping works. Once I connect to the VM, can I use public IP of another VM to RDP? Let's say I log into and use the public IP RDP. So is it possible since external? Actually, you never come through the public IPs. I actually assign public IP to talk to the VM to show this. Basically, you don't keep the public IPs on the backend VMs. Basically, okay, right. So let's move on. I installed web service on this VM, right? Web component. Now this will this will make you more clear. Then I'll move to the next level. So we have a web server installed on this one. When you install the web server, you will see one folder under C drive called inetpub, and then root directory. You'll find the entire executables, basically entire web HTML format, all the coding that the front end user people see, they deploy here and they call it. So when I'm calling this machine with this machine name, it will give a something. I disable this thing we talked about IE enhanced security configuration. I'll disable this because I'm going to access the internet or Internet Explorer. I mean, we discussed that if it is enabled, what happens. So now if I go to here, what is this machine IP 10.25.2.4? It will give a web page as a response because web server is enabled on this one. So now if I go to here, this is where this is the image it is loading. Whatever the image you see here, this is what it is loading. I'm going to add some text to this to identify this. So this is web server VM03 SQL VM03, in fact, right? I'll make a little bigger this text. Come on, right? So I'll go with 20 and then save this, and then if I reload the page, that thing will come into picture. I mean, loaded. See, this is a web server VM03. The same IP I can call from these VMs, and this is not working on the RDP, but this will work on the web service. We did not block the web service. We only blocked the RDP. That's it. So whatever you block, whatever it will block. Other things will be by default allowed to access because these fall under same network. So now if I look at this, it is loading the page from the SQL VM03. Even if I go to this VM also, this will also load the VM03, in fact, because these VMs are not blocked on the port number 80. Let's block that also, but I'm just showing it. So you have to block service by service. That's how you have to block. And what service you want to.
Ravi, this web page, whatever you saw, is only internal, right?
Internal, of course.
Okay. I cannot access from outside, right? This web
This
page.
particular the web page,
Yeah.
you can access with a public IP. In fact,
With public IP.
I
Okay.
public IP, but I did not allow the port 80. So if I wanted to access that from the external world, let me do that. So if I'm trying to access this IP, public IP, it should give that response, but this response will not go through. It's a public external communication, right? It is going through this. It is going through the NSG. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep any port number 80 should be allowed for everyone in the world. So if I add this rule, it will access from the public IP because you're reaching that port on this IP. Whatever is there on that machine, you should access it. So now if I do this one, it should get the web page. It will take 30 seconds to reflect. Anyway, these kind of things you never do, but I'm just showing as you asked. It should listen that web page. It takes some time, but it should go through.
Okay, so one last question. This relation between the public IP and private IP,
Mm.
where do we find that in the IP config? IP config all or something?
There
Where
is,
do we?
see, public IP is for something from the external people who are coming with another public IP. Their hit public to public is allowed by default. Allowed me in the sense, see, it is loaded, I guess. See, it is loaded this from my external. You all can access this, not only me.
Correct. Okay. So when we type in IP config, we
I
can't find
checked
this.
myself, it's work. I
Oh
just
yeah,
put,
it works.
yeah, this coverage. I just put in your back address and then I try from my laptop.
Yeah, good Mohammed.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead actually with your question.
Yeah.
Who is asking?
When we type in like IP config on this box,
Hmm.
uh, are we going to find the public IP?
Yes, you can find the public IP only from the browsers only. You go to the browser, okay, and you type what's my IP address, that will give the public IP. Public IPs you don't find in the command prompts basically. So only when you have that public IP access, you have to go to what's my IP address, that will give you the actual IP address of your machine. If I click on this, it will give me the public IP address of my machine to
Okay.
1.102.11.156. You
So
cannot
if
find this in the
you
command.
okay, if you restart this box now,
Hmm.
will this IP address change?
No, only deallocation can change. We talked about public IPs. If it is dynamic, only deallocation can change.
Can we also like release the IP by manually or no?
Yes, if at all you wanted, you can release the IP. You can dissociate. You go to this one. You wanted to really dissociate, you can release the IP. You can unmap from this VM. It is possible.
No, from the command line, like a IP config release or
No,
something.
no, no. You cannot release from there. That is only private IP you can release from there.
Oh, okay,
Public
okay.
IP cannot release. Public is IP story is different. You don't give the public IPs to the world. No need to worry. The backend servers we never. But I need a public IP to talk to the VM first to show this.
Hmm.
So I'm going to build a VPN. Through VPN, we're going to see that. You don't worry.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Right. So now where I am right now, what we were discussing. Come on. Right. So now if you look at this, all RDPs are there, right? Right. So now if we look at this, guys, what I was trying to talk about is this. It is able to access the web page, which is on the VM03, and this is also accessing the web page. Though these machines won't get into the VM through the RDP, but they are getting through the web page, right? I don't want that also. What should I do? I have to block it again. So I have to go to here. Every service you have to explicitly block it. That's how it works in the within the networks. If you don't want, prod should access a pre-prod, but pre-prod should not access a prod. One direction you block it. That's how it is, right? So 1.0/24. I'm going to block port number 80. Deny. You have to tell me whether it works or not. Whatever I'm defining as it is. Rule can be renamed. Doesn't matter. Now, can you tell me if I'm defining this rule as it is, will it block or won't on the VM03? It'll add up a rule. Just a bit. Was it 370 only? This is the one? What is source? Okay. It's not shown yet. Let's wait. Oh, come on. Where it is gone? Right. It is loaded now. Now look at it and tell me, you should understand. If you answer this, mostly you understood how it works. So there is a rule 370, which is allowing everyone to access the web page. There is a rule 370, which is blocking this network. With this rule set, will it VM012 can access the web page or not? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it will
Yes.
access.
Yeah, 370 is there. That's why it will still access that web page. It is possible to, because the lower the priority is allowing it. So what should I do? I'm going to delete this. In fact, I don't want this. I don't want external people to access my web page. The entire world can access now. But anyway, this entire world concept you never talk in the real world. That comes in the next class. We don't talk about entire, only specific. Now I blocked it. Now you can see that this is got blocked, which is got blocked. The port number 80 is blocked for the both the VMs. Now these should not access the web page anymore. You'll see that. Maybe it takes some time, or else it is cached. If it is cached, it won't go to the VM to get the page. It will only load from the RAM. So you have to close and reopen. Oh, it's still loading it. Just wait. It takes some time. 1.4 on the port number 80. Yeah, the rule is correct. It should block. Take some time. Right, it started. See, it is spinning the wheel means it will not let to access that. So here also. See? So both the VMs are not accessing the web page anymore. What is there on the VM03? See, this cannot reach this page anymore. On all web pages which are listening on the port number 80 cannot be reachable. Absolutely. Okay, because we actually block the web server port 80 HTTP. If you have HTTPS service, it will reach again. You have to block the HTTPS port also. Do I have to keep two rules like this? You don't need. Basically, I can delete this. I can keep all the ports to block in single rule if at all I wanted. I don't want to create multiple rules. You can do the blocking with the one. I can go with the here. The rule here, service custom. You have to go to the custom in that case. Custom 3389 comma 80. Both the ports block it one rule with one rule itself. The entire subnet. It is possible. You can block all the ports with one rule for the particular network incoming traffic. So I'm blocking both the ports now with one rule. Oh, is it allowing? Sorry, not here. I should add here. Should go to the custom for that. The custom will let you to add whatever you wanted to. 80. Both the things I am actually blocking. It is denying, right? Denying. Saving it. So one rule is sufficient to block both the services. Right. So see this one. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to access. Still, I cannot access. But first rule itself is blocking both the ports anyway. So if I go and do this, it is cached. It's a cached page. This caching, if I don't want to see this, I go to the Internet Explorer options, and there is something called browser cache, browsing history. Delete the browsing history. This one, history, cookies and everything. Delete, apply, click it OK. Now this won't load anymore. Come on, please. Internet options. Browsing history, this one. Download history, cookies, history and everything I did, right? Passwords. Did
I
not
think
apply what?
03 only, that's why.
No, it should go that entire, yeah. Now it started anyway. So now if I go to here also, it should not load. It won't load. We blocked it already. We blocked it. The 3389 and port number 80, both we blocked absolutely. Okay. This is how you can block any service that you wanted. Basically, it's a basic level with what we talked about. Now what I blocked the entire subnet, but I wanted to make a communication for one IP. How do I do that? See, this is going to block entire 251 IP ranges. All 251 IPs are blocked, but one IP out of it should access it. It's an exception. That is called an exceptions. How do I define? If anyone can tell, you really understood this.
We
Create
can
new
add
rule with higher priority.
You can create
New
One
rule
more
with
rule.
higher lower priority.
with what? With a particular IP that is you wanted to allow. That's very good. If you understood this, you're done. I mean, you're almost understood all the things. Next class is damn simple to follow. What is the priority should be?
Lower.
Lower than 330
What?
on the RDP port, right? What we are trying to do. So not only this, if I wanted to allow it does the RDP, which one I allowed? 1.4. 1.4 will do the RDP now, but not the web service. We will verify one by one. So this will make you more comfortable. 10.25.1.2.4 in fact, what we are accessing. 2.4. If I'm connecting, it will connect. It takes some time. See, it is connecting. RDP is connecting, but will it access the web service? No, it
No.
won't. It is still blocked. If I wanted to allow that also, I need to add that port also. Where do I add the port here? Again, I'll go with the custom and I'll add the port comma 80 and then save. So before I save it, you see it is still not opening it, right? It won't. So as soon as I save it, it does the job because you allowed for the particular IP out of 251 RDP and web service communication. So that way it is. So you can block anything, you can open anything. In fact, it is possible. This will be accessed in a few seconds. The rule need to get updated. It takes some time. It should basically. Right, started, see, this way. But here it won't happen on this VM. Why? We still have a block on the RDP as well. Both won't work because we kept only exception for the first VM, right? Only for the first VM created the exception, not for the both. That way you can control. The last thing I wanted to conclude here is, let's conclude with all of your, first I said, right? So what is IP I kept for to all of you? First IP, this is IP, right? 61. Is it a 61 IP? Right. So now try to hit this IP, everyone. Everyone hit it. You will get the response because there is a rule which is allowing any to any. I mean, everyone can make a connection in the world. Any, any does not exist in the real world at all. You never keep it any source at all. That's a big security threat. So hit that IP. Everybody should get the RDP prompt. Check it out. Everybody getting? Yes, getting it. Everybody around the world, whoever, wherever they are, doesn't matter. You can get the access because I allowed to the entire world. In fact, any source from the, no specific here. This rule never exists in the real world. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep the IP open for myself. What's my IP address? All you will get blocked. I'm going to get my IP. This is my public IP. Okay, this is how you'll get the public IP. Now, instead of any, I'll open to my specific IP. I only can make a connection, no one else in the world. Check it out. I mean, just wait for 30 seconds. Don't do it straight away. It takes 30 seconds to reflect that rule in the background. So don't conclude straight away. You have to wait for a few seconds to think how things are working. So then we can conclude. So now I log off from this VM01. Log off. I log in. I can connect because my IP is allowed still. You all are not allowed. Now check it out. Most probably it should not work. I mean, this could have been updated by now. No one can access that machine from the external world except me. Check it out. I can access because my IP is allowed. You guys checking it? It won't work for all of you. I know that. That is how it is. It only works for me because only one source is given to make into this, enter into this machine in the inbound. All of you are rejected, not coming RDP. Yes, not only for you, everyone, whoever, wherever they are, for all of the people, RDP won't work now. Check it out. This is what it is. IP means IP. So someone asking like how many are accessing? It's not how many. It's IP is allowed or not. How many? If they are coming, if so many people are trying to access the machine with the same IP, they can access. But many people cannot have the same IP, right? It is not possible. Public IP is unique. Check it, everyone. Everyone not getting the access, right? They are not getting the RDP. Please confirm. You're not doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not connecting.
Yeah, not connected. For everyone, it should not. So now, can any one of you go to your browser and give me the IP? I'll allow you, one of you along with me. You can use IPs also, by IPs also. Just go to the browser, watch my IP address and ping me your public IP address. I'll add you along with me. Only one other one, at least one of you. Ping me public IP. I'll just add that public IP to the rule. You also can access along with me because I'm whitelisting the IP. Can anyone quickly ping the IP, public IP? Right, Harini got. Thank you. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add her IP to this rule along with me. How do I add it? Just you have to go with the comma separated and then add it and save it. That's it. She'll also get the access from the public IP. If you wanted to create an exception like this, you can create. So directly public IP to the local network without any VPNs, nothing. So you are the responsible person for this, not the cloud. Cloud is by default blocked everyone, but you are allowing on top of it. So it's your, that's why it is called, networking comes under shared responsibility. Shared means Microsoft blocked anyway, you also have to block. So Harini also should get the RDP prompt in few seconds. Confirm Harini if you are getting it. You should get it for sure. It takes few seconds in fact. Yes, you got it. Thank you. So see, this is how it works. This is how it works. The IP assignment and all that. I mean, how we can control the traffic, how we can allow the traffic. This is something just the basics. How the live world will work is something is the next class. It's purely live. I mean, that's how the corporate networks will be implemented. If you understand that class, you can troubleshoot the entire networking side, troubleshooting to the SQL Server. Because every service integrated with IP. Without the IP, no service will communicate. So that is why we need to understand how networking actually works for us. So even in the storage, in every topic, I'll touch base the network, every topic what we're going to discuss, because every endpoint will listen through the network only first, then the authentication, then authorization. There are all layers will be followed. Anyway, when I start the SQL Server also, first network, then we will talk about the login, then authorization, what privileges and all that. We'll go in a sequential order. You get everywhere network, how network works. That is very, very important component in the cloud, along with the permission set. Right, this is all about today. Any questions? Any questions, let me know. If you understand today's class, next class is dead simple to follow because it is almost similar, but it is with a live network implementation. It's simple, guys. Cloud is simple, networks are simple to understand, rules are simple to read. But next class, I'll create more and more rules. And when there are more rules, how you can quickly look at the rules, what is allowed, what is not allowed. There is a trick I'm going to tell you because next class will come with the many rules basically.
And
Okay.
also, Ravi, maybe you can discuss tomorrow the difference between the V6 and V4.
No, that
IPv6.
V6 is a 32-bit, V4 is something 108 bits. So that gives more IP ranges. That's it. Nothing else. The blocking is came. I never dealt with it IPv6 at all, but IPv6 comes with a more, flexibility to form more IPs basically.
Okay.
We are not networking guys. How we need to communication working, that we are focusing here. Right. So any other question?
So tomorrow class is there or not?
No. Just a minute. Stay back, everyone. I'll stop and come.